All right. And welcome. This is Evo here from Playable Agency, and I am here today with Paige. Paige Dansinger, I am so excited to see you in person. It is great today. I am so excited to hear more of what you've been up to. And gosh, it's probably been a year and a half since we've seen each other in person. Is that right, Paige? I was trying to remember the last time. Was it Oculus Connect, maybe?
It was Oculus Connects. I almost feel as though we're back on those stairs right outside right now. So
yes.
Thank you for welcoming me and introducing me to the Playable Agency community.
Absolutely. So once again, this is Evo Heyning with Playable. I'm joined today by Paige, who is a brilliant artist who has translated her work into immersive and interactive spaces. We originally met through the Oculus ecosystem, but she's been creating for VR and augmented experiences now for a number of years. And Paige, you've been instrumental in a new body of work from the Oculus community within Horizon. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with Better World Museum and some of the other things you've been working on?
Well, thank you. I'd love to share a little bit about my time. Last November in 2019, I had the opportunity to join the Facebook Horizon Alpha core first group of creators. And through a really small community that has now expanded through the beta community, we have been learning how to use world building tools. Just using simple 3D shapes, text, and block scripting, and I'm able to now create animated and interactive experiences. And that's really exciting for me. For a really long time, I've been enjoying drawing and sculpting, but mostly painting and drawing in virtual reality with people and visitors at the Better World Museum. It was a brick and mortar space for over 5 years. And during that time, I would draw with visitors in a VR garden and in other projects. But since working in Horizon, I've learned completely new skills in virtual reality. And it's been an exciting time of exploration.
So you are one of these artists who translated a career in the physical arts into making participatory, interactive, and virtual art. And it sounds like you've turned this interactive museum of sorts that was both physical and virtual into something completely new in terms of your now Horizon work. And I get the sense that partially is about shared art assets and then shared art experiences. Is that right? Are they both in play there?
It really is. Thank you, Evo. In fact, it goes back to in 2012, I left working at an encyclopedic museum in which was local in my city in Minneapolis. And I loved working there, but I knew that social media and mobile experiences could be an incredible tool for art historians. And I just felt so passionate about it, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And I started out using mobile games to draw with other people in games like Draw Something and create art back and forth and share and make it have game aspects to it. So that turned into a practice that swept the world called Museum Draw. In fact, I had art that then I created an iPad drawing program with a local software design company, Illuminati here in Minneapolis. And with this drawing program, I would go to museums in real life or through social media and draw with their communities the art that was in the museums. It wasn't very long until some of that work was included in the Guggenheim Museum in New York, or I went to the Met Digital Media Lab and had an opportunity to work with the educators at the Met to learn how to draw on iPads. And then I even went back to the Guggenheim a few years later during Creative Tech Week, and I hosted an art in the round where we drew on iPads with people. So forward
so much fun.
today, here I've been creating art museum, the Horizon Art Museum, which is totally different than Better World Museum. They have different missions and different kinds of art altogether. But the Horizon Art Museum is an art museum that's focused on women artists. And I've been recreating art created within art history by female artists. And then as new creators in Horizon join the program, I've been working with them to learn how to amplify their voices. We've been creating a button in which they're able to push by using, a simple script, a trigger, and attaching it to a button. But teaching like a really elemental, simple script in which they're able to push a button and then amplify their voice recording.
Right.
Then they do a voice recording for the museum, but then they have the skill that they're able to amplify their voices. Well, I've been paying the participants, women and diverse creators, a little tiny stipend to participate because, well, within museums and artists, we always need to recognize our participants and our community partners and create more sustainable relationships. So it's just been a wonderful opportunity and experience because I've been meeting many new creators, making friends, and creating this amplifying voices experience. So,
yes. Well, it sounds like you and I have been dancing in similar spaces in terms of how to curate and create participatory opportunities for art making, where people can not only enjoy other people's art, but possibly create their own and contribute to something that's much bigger than their own. And I get the sense that you and I are both kind of, whether it's working with museums or art festivals or now companies, right? Figuring out how to make art deeply participatory as well as meaningful for the people who are playing along with it. I am so curious about some of the things that you have figured out how to build, and I definitely want to hear more about what you're doing with Horizon. But I understand you also have some questions around how to do multicasting and live streaming with some of these experiences. So let's talk a little bit about that. What are you trying to achieve?
I'm really excited to learn a new skill from you. I've taught how to create a button and a sound amplifying experience from one female creator, Nava. Nava Berg taught me how to create the script, and now I've gone on to teach others. You know how to multicast, and now you'll teach me, and through this experience, we'll be able to teach more people. So thank you, Eva.
And just to define what is multicasting, for those who are not necessarily familiar, what multicasting includes using the live streaming components or tools that we're very familiar with. Today, we're using a tool called StreamYard, but there are a number of tools that can send to more than one place at the same time. So multicasting meaning not just broadcasting broadcast to a single source, but perhaps sent, in this case, we are going to Facebook, we're going to YouTube today, we're going to Periscope, Twitter, and we're going to Twitch. That could also include your own private RTMP servers. That could include LinkedIn or any other type of social network that you're already plugged in with, right? So figuring out, for example, let's say you're in the Horizon Art Museum or the Experience Zone, and you're creating, and you might want to use OBS to capture what you're doing in your existing experience. And we've talked a little bit about OBS here in other shows, but I'm going to show you a little bit of what OBS looks like here. I'm going to switch my cam off to a virtual cam. And what we'll do in OBS virtual cam is basically, I'm giving you a second view of who I am right now. So you're seeing my screen through OBS Virtual Cam. OBS means Open Broadcasting Software. It is very simple, it's free, it's open in the sense that you can just download it and play with it. Now with OBS, you can also see a little bit of the sort of inside out of a multicasting experience. So in this case, instead of what we're seeing right now on our screen with OBS, I'm going to show you the back end of StreamYard just a little bit. So as you can see here, I have different banners that I can put up. So as we've been talking about multicasting and sending in your questions, that's what this looks like in the tool we call StreamYard. So StreamYard I pay for as a service for HD multicasting because I can build a show package here. I can add my logo, in this case, the Playable logo. I can change these overlays, which you can see here. So I could go to any number of things. So if I'm producing, for example, an art show like the one I'm going to do this weekend, I might use these overlays as interstitials. And you can see a little bit of what that looks like. I can upload video clips as well. So in some cases, I multicast from a game space or an immersive space, like in this case, Nowhere.
Oh, cute.
Great music, by the way.
It's original.
So that, for example, and I'm going to bring Paige back in. We have a number of ways in which we can mix multiple multicam experiences using OBS. Now, OBS Virtual Cam is a plugin inside of OBS, but what it's going to let you do is compose something more like a television solution and then feed it back to whichever multicasting solution you want to use. In this case, in StreamYard, all I have to do is set my camera to be the virtual cam instead of my webcam. And you can do this in Zoom as well. However, Zoom is really not set up for multicasting. It is set up to stream to a single source. So if you're looking to multicast, and I've got you muted, Paige, we're going to have you unmute, and let's take some of your questions specifically on multicasting and how to do that.
So have you ever tried it with like a Facebook portal?
Now, I am not an Oculus user. So
Okay.
I have Facebook. I have used Facebook in multicasting as both the source and as the output. However, I have never tried multicasting in or out of Portal or their other VR tools. I'm not an Oculus user, so that hasn't. I tend to work when I'm in VR and I want to multicast. I use the OBS tool to capture what I'm getting, and then I bring it in. And sometimes I will connect to different devices so that I have a display on that. I also learned from Illuminati, if you know the DJ Illuminati, she mentioned that opening certain programs before the other is crucial when you're dealing with some of these programs like Facebook, right? So having Facebook open when you open the OBS and then opening your multicasting solution kind of in that order. Because once you're in your VR rig, you're not going to get necessarily, you may have to be sort of in and out of the VR rig in order to stream effectively, or you need someone else supporting you to do that.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So the OBS though will send it out to the channel or the platforms that I want. Am I able to do it to several platforms at one time, like Twitch, YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook all at the same time?
Yes, and I'm going to show you a little bit of what that looks like on the back end now. So let's see, I'm going to share our screen to a Chrome tab of StreamYard. All right, so that's us right now, and you can see what that looks like on the back end, right? So we talked through some of these windows, and you have the brand option, which lets you set up all of those clips ahead of time, and then the private chat, the banners, and then the social media comments, which I can then take questions from. Now, what I want to show you is how to set up a broadcast, which is this club here. Okay, so what you're seeing here right now is different broadcasts, and you can see that when I set up, I click to the destinations I want to send it to. So in this case, I might want to send it to my Facebook, I might want to send it to my YouTube, Twitch. You can also add a new destination, and you can see what those look like as well.
Oh, yeah.
So you have control over your destinations. You can always add a destination, and these are the types of things it knows how to send to automatically. But in many cases, you're using a custom RTMP, right? So if you're producing a virtual event and you're using their video streaming solutions, which we do frequently for festivals and conferences, we do custom RTMPs. And so this might, in this case, that may not be what you need, because if you're just using Facebook, it's pretty straightforward, right? You create the broadcast, you send it to your group or your page. You can also send it to a personal page as well as an organizational page. So once you've set that up, then you just go and enter the broadcast studio, which is where we are right now. So that's the baseline. That's the simplest starting point. Now, that's StreamYard, for example, and there are other tools. Some of my colleagues use another one called Restream.io, which you're also welcome to, try out. Some of them offer free tools, or at least short-term ways to try it out before you go and purchase a plan. With this tool that I'm using now, I pay, I believe it's $50 a month for an HD Pro version. And that lets me record and save all of my content in the cloud. So we'll have a recording of today's broadcast. I can then cut from that and do what I need to do. I have found that this tool in particular, because I can bring 10 different feeds in via StreamYard, and that is higher than almost all other tools out there will support realistically right now. So using OBS Ninja, you can do a few feeds. There are ways to do this using OBS only, but it's very tricky and not necessarily user-friendly, let's say. I can have a whole panel of speakers at a virtual, let's say, festival. I could have 10 artists like you here, and we could all be on the same screen at the same time. So same with screen sharing, right? So I could have 5 artists, 5 screen shares, and all of you giving your tours in tandem in this one tool, and then send it out to 6, 8, 10 different sites at once.
Fantastic. I can see how it really benefits the committed user, and how the investment would open up a vast amount of opportunities.
So tell me a little bit more about the kinds of experiences you're hoping to host next. What are you excited to create?
Well, I love to create live videos from within Facebook Horizon of simple how to build videos, first of all. And then Nava and I have been talking about creating this Wednesday show. I just built a set for it over the weekend of like a Wonderful Wednesdays show where we're highlighting wonderful things that are happening within our community in creative technology. And most of all, I'd like to create my own video podcasts from within Horizon that is really discussing like futurist climate resilience and community like solutions using creative technology.
Yes.
That's a cross combination conversation between the creative tech sector and VR and museums. So this will be, you know, from smart city exploration to urban edible gardening to how museums can create more empathetic and more equitable communities using virtual reality.
Makes sense. This is exactly what we've been doing with the Buckminster Fuller Institute and the Design Science Lab. So we created, I'm going to put up a poster here. This was a talk I did last week, 2 weeks ago now. But we used a platform called Run the World for this. And I noticed they're now promoting our event and their front page here. But this was a screenshot from our event where we had a salon of many of these solutionaries together coming and sharing the demos of their work that we're doing together at the Buckminster Fuller Institute. There are all sorts of ways that these cross-pollinations can be generative, right? So how are you designing for collaboration and generative, like really radically creative uses of each other's work while you're building on each other?
Yeah, so one of the worlds that I recently built is the Horizon Art School. And we actually happen to have a Buckminster Fuller dome in the back courtyard of the school. And we've been using this as a platform for climate hackathons. I set up an area of shapes and a weekly challenge, and then a button to hit for a reward of VR confetti for the reward. And groups come in and work together and just solve create solutions with simple shapes. But really what it is exercises and working together and thinking with new partners. And I believe that's a really important part of individual, group, and community resilience, the ability to work quickly with new partners who we often would consider maybe others. And to have these creative exercises dissolve those barriers for just the agility and placidity to rise to major occasions when there are catastrophes.
Figuring out how to use these platforms effectively to solve problems like that is the sort of the fulcrum, in the sense like it is a leverage point, right? Once you have created a space and opened the doors to participation, you've created something that can tip the scales in a whole different direction. We did a similar hackathon during the after the Paradise fires. We did the hackathon across both physically, and also we were experimenting with Mozilla Hubs at the time. And it was amazing to me that now 2 years later, we're seeing like Kevin Kunz's film Silence in Paradise show up out of the fruit of that cross-pollination, that labor that came together in the moment of the crisis. And now, I mean, 2020 is a case study in crisis. So as you think about what you are transmitting and offering to other artists, and maybe artists who are new to figuring out how to translate their work into virtual spaces, what do you want them thinking about? How do you want them sort of reframing or contextualizing or maybe making their work more interactive?
I would say that everyone around us at all times has value. And as long as you create opportunities for people to participate, and it can be just like in the moment, someone can be like trying on a VR headset, and you can say, we need headset designers, and just give them this leadership role. All summer long, I've been practicing sort of immediate leadership role creation with young people in RecRoom and within Horizon as new creators come in. And once you kind of make somebody not just feel like, oh, you need them for one thing, but that they actually have a leadership role, they just feel just so on top of the world. I hope, as I write grants, I always write in a portion for artists and community members. And it's just part of the job, right? Is that you create this fund, and more institutions can even do this, even if one pays somebody $10 for a 30-second recording, or creates a mutual donation to a foundation, whether it's environmental or social or political. It creates this whole sense of value within the shared experience. And you don't have to be a super high budget museum in order to create deep senses of value in partnerships in your community.
Right. And it starts with the invitation to participate. And it sounds like you have done a fantastic job, especially, I'm glad you mentioned grant writing, because much of this has to happen through public-private sector partnerships, including foundations, or in some cases, corporations, making a grant, an opportunity available that then you as a producer curator can then make available to more and more artists, right? That is a essential sort of value tree. It's like you're feeding the whole garden at that point. And I've noticed that those of us who are deeply participatory in the way we create are, we're shaping a different type of media, if that makes sense. We are shaping something that is obviously interactive, not passive at all, but that is also transmitting agency to others. You're actually teaching art to people who maybe haven't created these types of art experiences before, right? You are giving a sense of power and agency to creators to then go do something new and to possibly generate something extraordinary off of each other's works. Now, this gets into some tricky terrain too, because then who owns the work, or what do you do with it, right? Like, this is this sort of Wild West open web, and depending on where we create the work, that determines who maybe owns it or has the rights to use it later. How do you approach those challenges as a creator and artist, but also as someone who's creating space for others to work too?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. So I'm really a firm supporter of Creative Commons and open source. I really feel as though that any time that can be embedded in your systems, from the very beginning of creating an organization or a new program, then it will benefit more people. And that can even, that relationship needs to be sustainable. So like even today when I looked up on Wikipedia something, I made, my little donation, right? And that just helps create a more sustainable Creative Commons culture, but also for for Better World Museum and Horizon Art Museum, we're just really kind of beginning to explore some of those boundaries. So when an artist creates something in VR at Better World Museum, for instance, this summer we had a very talented 11-year-old artist inside of RecRoom's Better World Museum, who's an environmentalist, Alex Favas. And Alex was an incredible artist. He's created 2 shows with us. Both of his installations have 3D objects. If somebody wanted to purchase one, we would create an opportunity for that to happen, either probably through like a platform like Super Rare, where the digital object could remain a digital object and just be an essence or a link, or create like a poster where that image is just a download, right? Or like just a, like something in which they capture. And with young people, you know, diverse and young people, we don't take a percentage of their like something in which they would generate.
Right. So you're functioning like an educator instead of as a gallery in that way, right?
I usually am working hard for them, for young people, but for adults, you know, that then we create a contractual agreement, and usually that's like pretty equal and includes donating to an organization. So what you're looking at right now are a lot of like the summer's work surrounding the art school and Better World Museum in within the
so you've got multiple classes going right now, it looks like, if teachers or students or parents are interested in maybe exploring this. This is betterworldmuseum.com that we're on right now.
I do have classes in which students are able to enroll.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So I have been talking to a number of amazing artists who are trying to figure out how they're going to play in these spaces. And you've obviously navigated a number of worlds, and you chose to work in RecRoom and in Horizon. What made you decide to work in those platforms, and how do you see that as creating sort of an open door to participation with students as well as with professional artists?
Thanks for asking that. I was introduced to RecRoom by Paula Polito, the founder of XR Pioneer in Shenzhen, China. And during the 2018-2019 year, as a Facebook community leadership fellow, I had the opportunity to travel to work with their team in Shenzhen and in Beijing, and we started using RecRoom as a platform for teaching students how to create VR garden. I would create lessons like create a tree and then make something red in it and something that grows near it, and create these challenges. And then after 3 weeks of working through RecRoom, visit the classroom itself and work with the students. And we had already built such empathy and connection through VR that when we met in real life, it was like we already knew each other. The platform was able to, on their end, at XR Pioneer, they were able to see students that they already knew who had been working in other platforms develop in new ways and gain a lot of confidence with it. And our young people that we worked with this summer, I created a room and held a couple of events right when COVID started, and we had a pizza party, and I had yet to build in RecRoom, and 3 like young people, they were 2 15-year-olds and a 13-year-old came, and at first they were really giggly and silly, but I welcomed them. I said, we're drawing together, join us. And they couldn't believe that I didn't boot them out, right? And they really tested me. They giggled more, right? And still I was cool with it. And I just knew that they were having a really funny, silly time, and I thought that was great. And people always say, like, "Ooh, RecRoom, it's full of young, chaotic, young teenagers."
Right.
I think I love young, chaotic teenagers because what they felt was included and wanted and welcome. So they said that they felt a little sorry for me, and they offered to create me a museum. They said, "Hey, can we make you a museum?" And I said, well, fine. They were in the UK, and I'm here in Minneapolis, and it was 1 a.m. and I was done. I had hosted an event all night, and I was ready to sleep, and I just said, make whatever you want. I trust you.
Wow.
I mean, what could go wrong, right? I wasn't worried at all. So 2 days later, I popped back online, and what they created was amazing. They created this whole gorgeous museum with a classroom and canvases for people to paint on, and an interactive animating logo, and a DJ booth, and a pot full of flowers, and
wow.
They all worked together. And during that process, they became friends and learned how to, one delegated, he acted as architect leader, and he became the delegator of things. And then the other one just like kind of worked on this, and the other one excelled at that. And each one ended up having like their incredible roles, which turned out like Maddie, the 15-year-old girl, went on to become our like virtual educator. I would she would make a recording of her teaching a 30-second lesson in a like a pop-up holotar, and I can show you a little.
Yeah, please do. If you want to screen share, I'll bring it up for you. And then I am extremely curious about the building process, because I know many creators will build once in Blender, for example, and then import, versus building in a tool. And I know that much of what you're doing is building in the tools themselves.
Yes, I'm building with the tools, except for I'm not building in RecRoom. I just let these teenagers build. But then the whole time I was actually learning how to build in Horizon, and I like that so much. That's really the place that I build well.
Got it. That makes sense. I built in a half a dozen virtual worlds before I found that I liked building in Second Life, right? And then I spent 7 years building, these kinds of spaces, right? Which are very different than most worlds will allow you to create. I've been attempting to do other types of builds, but as you can see, each world has its own look and feel. I'm going to show you a little bit of the other art experiences that we've done recently, because we've been doing a number of art festivals, as well as let's say, things like Burning Man or Ars Electronica. I'm also helping to curate right now. Helping to produce, not curate, an art series. It's called Edge Cut, and we're back on this Saturday. So this is the list of artists that you'll see. And I want to show you a little bit of what that looks like very quickly, because it is Nowhere is a platform that is cloud-based, but is built in A-frame. So it operates much like VR, but it's really not VR-centric at all. It's not specific to VR. So it's even less VR than something like Mozilla Hubs, where you can go in on any device. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what this looks like in Nowhere, because what we're doing in these spaces is a different type of art performance, I would say. So you can see that art quality there, which is like an animated game world, but the folks show up in these video nonagons instead of as avatars. And so they are very much embodied as their own physical selves versus coming in these kind of ways.
Dan would love it.
Awesome.
So that was me hanging out with some friends at the virtual Burning Man in Alt Space, where we were spinning electrical and having fun doing exactly the same sorts of things that we would have done at Burning Man, but in a VR element. So I'm going to bring up your screen share, and it looks like I've got all of your screens at this point. So I'll let you decide what you want to show us.
All right. Thank you. Since I'm learning how to do this correctly.
Yeah. Well, what's great about StreamYard and screen sharing is that you can pick by application, by whole display, or just by a single Chrome tab. So depending on if you're using Chrome, Safari, or Firefox, you can sometimes just go straight to the tab you want. I'm going to let you go ahead and show this.
So do you see now just this video?
Yeah. Hit play on that.
This is, and I can skip through parts of it, but this is a video of teen leadership within the museum in RecRoom Better World Museum. And this, the teens' works were presented at the World Health Organization with the direction of Lisa Russell, the founder of Create 2030, at a World Health Organization discussion on resilience in the arts in relation to COVID. And here,
so this was earlier this year, then?
Yeah, this is this summer.
Actually physically interact with them, even though they're not there, but you still give, like, tap them on the head or something like that, you know.
If you had a label of your leadership role, what would you call yourself?
I would call myself the architect, because so the whole structure you see here, all the flooring, the support, the funky roof, so pretty much all the lighting, block stuff, the structure around you when you're in this room is built by me. So all this was made from my head. So yeah, when I build,
Yeah.
So it sounds like the building tools are robust in RecRoom. That's correct? Fairly robust?
Fairly, very. And he'd go on to talk about how actually it helped him overcome like social anxieties. Maddie, here's her make a rainbow lesson.
In order to make a rainbow, you must include the colours red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, brown, and black. Thank you.
I'm Alexander. I'm 11.
And here's Alex talking, and he would share about his artwork. His works were really, really impressive. Here's one, his rose he created, and here's a tree he created that used the gizmos and maker pen techniques in which he taught himself. So this is our 11-year-old artist in residence, Alex.
So this 11-year-old has figured out how to basically to grow plants in the virtual space.
That's correct.
That's
And
wonderful.
I mean, I didn't teach him. I just gave him the opportunity to be the artist in residence.
Makes sense.
Because
Makes sense.
I didn't know how, for one, and then to be honest with you,
I'm 11.
I was busy
and
here in this is our amplifying voices a little bit.
Hi,
in
this is Paige Dansinger
Horizon.
at the
You can
Women
take a
Artists exhibit at the Horizon Art Museum.
add a little bit
I'd
of
love
how
to
I've
share
been
with you how we amplify
amplifying
community
voices.
voices at the museum.
The bold colors and patterns made with recycled fabric seem to be giving me a tangible piece to send off life. These quilts, made by women who are among the small population of the.
So that was the beginning of our program, and where Electric Beckett won creator, our first creator. I'm coming back to you now.
Yeah.
I don't know how to come back. Stop sharing screen.
I'm going to stop it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You did it.
So Electric Beckett was our first creator, and that example is from, and now we have gone on to include we're going on our 8th creator.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's only been open. I've been doing this just since the beta has opened like 2 months ago, but it just started out with one, and now it's snowballing into more opportunities.
So
So they make a button, and they reinterpret one of the artworks in the museum, but then they have the skill that they can, push in a whole bunch of other ways. And actually, I just got rejected for a grant in which I would teach a whole 3-week workshop centered on amplifying voices, but I'm going to do it anyway because this is just what creators do. I just thought it would be a better. I'm going to write another grant, but I'm going to still do it in the meantime. But my hope is that I can pay more people more, right, and include more people and give them all a little stipend for doing it.
Right. I'm trying to create a similar a group art experience next year, and it's challenging to find the funding to then disperse amongst those artists. So I'm curious how you unlock that door, and how, I mean, obviously, no one has 100% hit rate on their grants, but how do you, find the right time and the right organization and say, okay, this is the one, we're going to make this happen here?
It almost never happens.
It's true, right?
I follow a rigorous practice that's actually pretty grueling. Someone once said at a artist talk that was sponsored by Hyperallergic magazine, that they said to go for 100 no's a year.
Yeah. Go for 100 no's a year. That's a lot of grant writing. If you imagine between 10 and 100 hours per grant.
Yeah.
Now, many of us obviously spend less, or we do the same grant over and over again, but still, it's a lot of work to write a grant. So
it is.
100 no's is hard.
Yeah. A lot of times, for instance, like I opened up my email the other day. Well, I look at it all the time, but you have to accept that you're going to wake up and see a rejection from something that you can't remember that you applied to.
Right. 5 months ago, you sent in an email, and there it is. Yes. And don't take it personally, because it's only because they had 50 others that were just, as good.
Right,
and
exactly.
that's the thing. We have so many fantastic artists who are making the leap now from the physical gallery into the virtual space, or are trying to figure out how to translate work that maybe does beautifully in big physical gallery, but maybe would be harder to understand. I work with one artist in particular. We were just having a conversation about this, and she's deciding which worlds to bring her art into.
Mhm.
And one solution that I had suggested to her to consider was to build in Blender. And the reason I had suggested building in Blender for her is that once you create the assets, you can then make your virtual assets available across multiple domains. So if you've created something in Blender, you can then export it, and you might have to mess with your shaders or certain levels of coding the interaction to the world. But this is an open source tool that Facebook and others are now supporting. And Blender is tremendously powerful to create beautiful 3D art assets. So I'm fascinated to see how many artists are picking up Blender this year, because it is sort of the tool for creating, modeling, animation rigging, all of the things we use in virtual spaces, right? So if you need to figure out how to make custom avatars and then figure out how to model them and make them available in multiple worlds, Blender is a great place to start, especially if you're one of those artists who you think your 3D brain is going to translate well to the virtual space. And many of us, when we first start out, we don't realize that if we make an art asset in one world, we can't take it to other worlds, right? It's there and that's it. So Blender is one of those tools that gives us the start of portability. It's not interoperability. We can't take our avatar to all the worlds at once, and we don't have a suitcase of all of our assets to take to all those worlds yet. But I think we're going to get there. And I think we're going to get there pretty fast now that we're using so many open source tools in tandem as a community together.
Well, thanks for bringing up Blender. I am intrigued by it. I did see that Facebook purchased it. And so I have an idea that maybe assets in which one creates there, one could eventually potentially even bring into a platform like Horizon,
right?
Or Quill. That's also that's just Oculus owned, but Facebook owns Oculus. So it's becoming more of a family. And to be honest with you, I've never created anything in 3D. I think that was through my computer. I've only created inside of.
You've created within like Quill or Tilt Brush or inside the VR space.
Yeah, I've never really used Unity much, or other. I've never then created something and then imported it into a Sketchfab and then re-rigged it in something else. For instance.
Right.
And I see other artists doing that all the time, and it's super cool. So
it's essential if you are a sculptural artist trying to figure out how to translate your works. And obviously photogrammetry and 3D scanning and LiDAR and all those things are taking off with the new iPad and other tools that are now baked in. But that does not necessarily capture the detail of artistry that is happening in many of these spaces. And so figuring out how to get, the tiny little nails in a sculpture or the brushstroke quality, right? Some of these things are much easier to work with shaders or to work on top of the existing art to bring its layers out. So that, let's say when the light hits it in VR chat and the light hits it in another world, that they look relatively similar. Right now, we don't have any sort of universal operability in the way those assets are addressed. And that's going to take some time in terms of how the XR community determines how we want to make our assets shareable and let's say Creative Commons moddable, right? So like in VR chat, you have your Creative Commons avatars, you can put it on and we can all be your avatar. And that's quite fun. Most worlds don't necessarily do that. A place like Second Life, you can, sell your avatars in the open market and make a bank if you feel like it. This has been such a fascinating conversation. I want to make sure I got to all of your multicasting questions though. So our as you're thinking ahead to the kinds of art experiences, both live and this sort of there's a mix of simulcast live and recorded content that we call SimuLive in virtual events, where you're using some recorded pieces along with live content, a little bit like what we're doing right now. When you think about how you are going to combine these tools, what are the points that are still sticky for you, or the interactions that you want to see possible that you're not quite sure how to make yet?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I think that you've offered me tips and knowledge within a toolbox in which it seems as though I have opportunity to put them into play, and that the specifics of how I click onto one thing or another, I know that I could come back, crowdsource, ask you. I could Google up on YouTube and check out a tutorial on, like, where do I find the stream key or this or that. Right. So that little minutia, I don't think I need to ask you, but I think that our conversation has engaged such a wonderful thought of the possibilities of endless connectivity within the resources we have together and shared within our community, that it's been fulfilling.
I hope that all of the teachers and art creators, curators, those who have museums and galleries or are trying to figure out how to make virtual experiences that are rich, that could be libraries, that could be all sorts of public institutions. Paige, how do people find you if they want to, employ you or do an art show with you next year? How do we find you, Paige?
Sure. Thanks for asking that. I'm really easy to find. I'm all over social media under Paige Dansinger museum page, Better World Museum or Horizon Art Museum. But my website, in which you're able to contact me easily through, is just simply paigedansinger.com.
All right. I am going to make sure we have that in a easy to digest form in our archive and our description. And Paige, thank you so much for making time to join us today. I hope that more of you will be able to join some of the art experiences that both Paige and others in our community are creating. You are absolutely welcome to join us for EdgeCut this weekend. Actually, I'm going to bring you I'm going to bring a quick screen share of the our art show on Saturday is called Sanity. And Sanity is specifically focused on performance interactions, so liveness, embodiment, and yeah. So you'll see a number of the artists are playing with digital technologies, plus performance, plus green screen, plus inviting some type of play with the audience. And we're doing these art shows in a tool called Nowhere, which I mentioned is this sort of XR tool that is not a typical virtual space. It is sort of a hybrid between something like Zoom and something like Horizon or Mozilla Hubs. So there are tickets. You can definitely reserve those now. We do these events monthly. This is part of New York Live Arts. And it's a series that I have very much enjoyed creating with Kat Mustea and Heidi Boishert in New York. So I hope that you'll be able to join us for some of those. And we're doing regular virtual festivals, art shows, all sorts of experiences. So obviously, if you need help with anything that you're out there creating, this is a regular Monday open office hours here at Playable Agency. And you can hit me up on social media. So if that's what you need help with in terms of your art experiences, your interactions, your educational show designs, or maybe figuring out how you're going to bring all of these elements together for your community, I'm here to help. So you can can join us anytime. Paige, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I'm going to go ahead and cut our stream here. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great day.